I've been a raid lead for a minute now, which means I've played through a few raid tiers with different guilds from normal to mythic, and with varying levels of skill amongst the raiders, and varying levels of gear too. And I've learned a lot, so before I make healing guides, the raid lead guides, and anything else you all want to see, I kind of want to get this one out of the way. Some of my grievances from raiding in World of Warcraft. The things I wish players were just a bit better at, or maybe just more knowledgeable about. So hey, kick back, enjoy the rant, and if you like healing content, hey, get subscribed. It means a lot to me. Or if you just like listening to me talk about World of Warcraft, hey, I appreciate you. There are three categories of things that drive me up the wall about raiding. Let's start with my least favorite, best in slot in stat weights. So for the unaware, a best in slot list or a BIS list is sort of what is the best gear in each slot for your spec. This can really greatly change between different builds, different play styles and whatnot, but typically speaking, a guide writer will come up with a best in slot list by running simulations on things such as raid bots to get that supposed best in slot list, then write alternatives for gear and other things that you can grab that would be good for you and why your stats are the way they are. The problem I find is that players tend to ignore everything I just said, get a best list and go, I need that. And the problem is, first of all, it's impractical. You might not get the gear. There's other people in a raid. It maybe the item never drops. Maybe it's something from Mythic Plus and you mostly raid, or maybe you mostly do Mythic Plus and you never raid. So best in slot is sometimes hard to come by, but also it's that they don't understand how their stats work the way they do. A lot of guide writers will tell you exactly how those stats work. For Windwalker, they can get damage out of haste, but they never get more damage out of haste than any other stat. So typically speaking, they run an incredibly low haste stat with high other stats because that just gives them more damage. Meanwhile, Survival Hunter runs haste and versatility usually because they just have sort of flatline scaling where more haste means lower bomb cooldowns, which means more bombs. More auto attacks with more haste means more bomb cooldown. Moves that cooldown bomb are also hasted, which therefore makes them hit more quickly, which means more bombs, which means more damage. These concepts aren't super hard to usually conceptualize, and if you are lost or you are new, don't worry. A simple guide will go over your stats and you can just remember that and, you know, double check every expansion, every patch to make sure that nothing has changed. But I've seen entire guilds fall apart over loot. I've seen people be divas and leave raid teams, some of my own raid teams as well, because I was given a piece of gear over somebody else because I said I would run versatility and chromatic essence for anyone who's had to use that item. It's insane to me, the kinds of things that people do for loot when you can usually get good enough loot from various sources in crafting to get good parses, good high scores for damage or healing or whatever, without having to do this strange juggle and dance over gear. So this usually frustrates me. Pretty much as a raid lead, I have lost it with people demanding certain pieces of gear. Gear's almost never been the reason I have lost a boss fight. It's always mechanics. Speaking of mechanics and parsing. I don't know if I have to explain what mechanics are, but it's all the things that happen in a fight, from swirlies on the ground, frontals, tank soaks, bombs getting put on players, picking weapons, DPS checks, dodging lines in Nimue. You already know. Parsing is when you use Warcraft logs to upload your combat data and compare yourself to other players. I can make a whole video on this, and there's many other YouTubers that have. Highly recommend you check out Warcraft logs, but by uploading, you can see how you stacked up against other players. And a lot of the times for damage and healing, this can be a great feeling. And if you're done with bosses, right, like you've cleared the bosses or you know the fight super well and you're about to get your first clear on like Mythic or something like that, you know what? Yeah, go for the parse. Go for the min-max optimization, do the best damage you can. As long as it doesn't hold back the fight, right? As long as it doesn't get you killed, and getting killed is the biggest damage loss you can have. The problem is that players don't think like this. I've raided with so many groups and players obsess over their parse. Maybe they want to get into a guild and they want to show off some impressive parses. Maybe they want to just flex on their friends. Whatever the reason is, if you focus on your parse and not the mechanics, you tend to hold your entire raid team back. If you learn where the mechanics are and you get so good at the game that you can focus on mechanics and still do your damage actually goes up because you learn when to press your buttons and when not to press your buttons. Let's say you have a 3-minute cooldown coming up, but you're also potentially about to get selected for a bomb and you need to run the bomb out of the party and you can't be doing damage. So don't press your 3-minute. Yes, it might be up, and yes, it might line up with all of your other abilities and look really pretty, but if in 5 seconds you might get selected, you might lose a lot of your damage. So maybe this is the time to hold your button, bring the bomb out, come back in, then blast off. It's a damage loss, but it's not nearly as bad as wasting the 3-minute cooldown. So by understanding the mechanics, you can better place your damage. This counts for healing as well, and I'm going to get all into that. But if you're new to raiding and this sounds a little intimidating, don't worry about it. In LFR and in normal, the mechanics are pretty easy to pick up after a wipe or two, and you should have no problem understanding when things are happening and what might happen when they go wrong. And especially in early normal fights, players can make mistakes that aren't catastrophic. They might become catastrophic in like heroic or mythic, but that's okay. It's a learning process. This is something that I have to deal with in mythic raid teams where players don't want to do mechanics and parse. No, I was not talking about beginners this whole time. I'm talking about real players that want to do top level content and don't want to, you know, avoid the swirly on the ground. I can't make this up. When it comes to healing, I feel the same way I do about mechanics and parsing, but in healing. And that first of all, I really hate when people just heal parse, especially on prog. Again, I don't mind if you're like on your second clear and you're just trying to get as much healing as possible. Yeah, go for it. It's super fun. But I like to look at raid a little differently. There is a minimum amount of damage we will take as raiders, right? And even more so, a certain amount of damage we'll take that'll get us close to being lethal or that will actually kill us. Us as healers need to do enough healing to sort of clear that bar, right? I need to heal more than the damage we take, and furthermore, I need to heal enough so that none of that damage we take is lethal. As long as people aren't dead, we're chilling. And so I try to react to heals on my first time through so that I can see A, how much damage they're doing to my party, but B, how much I need to commit as a healer in order to heal those mechanics. By working with my teammates and their healing profiles and watching the damage come in, we can come up with solutions on where we want to use our cooldowns, where we don't have to use our cooldowns, and figure out how to put it all together. This also helps me find my damage windows. Now, if you're a newer healer, you don't need to worry about the damage. On LFR and normal, trust me, damage isn't necessary. But as you move into heroic and especially mythic, it's good to learn how to do your damage as a healer, which usually isn't too hard in the first place, but you'll find where that damage goes with good, clean team healing. But a lot of people don't know how to work as a team and don't even know how their other healers work. I highly recommend that you as a healer player go out of your way to learn how the other healers heal. You don't gotta read entire guides, but just an understanding of what type of healing and the style of healing and their big cooldowns, what they do, so that you can work better alongside them. If you're working with a lot of rot healers as a preservation evoker, healers that slowly bring the health bars up of the whole party, it's good to know as a bursty healer that you're going to burst health bars and everyone else is going to patch up the work you do. So try to get your heals in early so that their healing can work its magic and you can get the most potency out of yours. But I've also ran into stories like the one I'm about to share, a Resto Shaman player who was told that she wasn't healing enough in a mythic council fight on a Mirjasil. The problem wasn't the healer. If you watch the logs and you see the replay and everything, she actually does quite good. But yeah, she had like a 14 parse, what gives? Well, turns out they 5-healed the fight. They were not confident in everyone surviving. This meant that the Resto Druid, the Mistweaver, and the Holy Priest sort of outsniped our Resto Shaman. The Resto Shaman didn't do bad, used their cooldowns effectively, and had really good uptime. They something in the 99-98% uptime. They were doing a great job. But the raid lead really thought that they weren't doing enough healing, and how can we raise those numbers? But realistically, if it was 4 healers and you redistributed the healing numbers as if there were only 4 healers, she could have easily gotten like a 40-something parse without a second thought. Raid leads don't understand how healing works, other healers don't understand healing works, and it turns into this misunderstanding when it's so easy to work together and heal as a team. And so I highly recommend that you all think about playing more as a team or how to work with the other profiles of healers that you have, because when a fight goes smooth and you all work together, trust me, the DPS, the tanks, they notice. They're not worrying about their life, they're not worrying about their health bars, they're just able to get bosses down. Now that I got all of that off my chest, realistically, raiding is a good time, and I've made some wonderful memories. And if you were intimidated by any of this, trust me, there's going to be drama in every part of World of Warcraft. Finding a guild that is fun to play with and has your objectives in mind, like, right, you're all on the same page, some of the best gaming experiences in the world. I'm not even kidding. From the funny little nicknames you give bosses to the silly strats and jokes you come up with from people dying in funny ways in boss fights. We overhyped this thing called the Australia strat while our guild leaders were gone. They came back home and We were like, all right, everyone, it's Smolderon, time to do the Australia strat. We just went counterclockwise. We thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And honestly, we'll never forget that moment. So please, go and make your memories, go and push, whether you're a parser or you're just somebody there who's there to get a little bit of gear and have some fun. It's totally worth it. For the people looking to learn how to heal, I'll cover my favorite healers in Raid. There are some healers like Resto Druid I can't get enough of in Mythic Plus, and I would like to never, ever, ever play in Raid ever again until they change something major. I cannot stand that spec in Raid, so I'll probably stick to the ones that I love. But for the raid leads, I'll be making guides on how healing works, how to manage drama, maybe even loot drama, and other things that your guild might run into to help make your raiding environment even more fun and even more competitive. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Also, a huge shout out to my heroic raid team, which is finally dabbling in Mythic. A lot of these people, it's their first time in Mythic, and not only have they gotten Gnarl Root down in one pull at this point for reclear, but Ajira's gone down, and tonight not only do we get Ajira, we got Money Snake, and we're already starting the prog on Larry. Powered Furry, let's go. I'm so proud of you all.